Good evening. I guess I was asked to come here to do a little myth busting, I guess, to determine whether a small population, or help you determine whether a small population area can actually survive under incorporation for any length of time. I'm a lifetime resident. We're talking about Metchosin. I'm going to be talking about Metchosin and our experiences as we went through the incorporation process and where we have come to today. I was born, I'm a lifetime resident there, and raised my family there. My wife's sitting in the background. She comes to these things and has to put up with listening to me. So what you're going to hear from me tonight is first-hand observation, right straight through the entire process. I'm not going to guarantee that my memory is that good, but at least it's first-hand. Metchosin I see a lot of similarities in Metchosin with the small Shawnigan Lake, the proposed small Shawnigan Lake. There's not a designation for it, but
the Shawnigan Lake model.
The Shawnigan Lake model. Metchosin is the second largest landmass municipality in the capital region and the second smallest population. We have about 200 lane kilometers of road. When you take a look at that, conventional wisdom would tell you, wow, that you shouldn't, that's pretty scary, but we're not very conventional and it hasn't been a problem. But I'll start with sort of the beginning of government. When Metchosin was a community like Colin, Langford, and everything else, but we were all under provincial authority. There was no regional district or anything. And the province, of course, was pretty anxious to offload that responsibility. So they started encouraging people to think in terms of regional government. So we had the first foray into that was called Mini Metro. And I can remember, that was back in the 60s, and I can remember sitting in the Metchosin Community Hall. The Metchosin people were very active. Everybody turned out no matter what it was. Big full community hall, and there was this guy that was telling us the virtues of Mini Metro, and he said, somebody asked the question, well, what's it going to cost? So this guy says, I can guarantee you that all this will ever cost is one office, one desk, and one half-time secretary. Well, Mini Metro morphed into the CRD, and now it's got a $40 million annual payroll. $600 million of asset, $40 million annual payroll. So that shows you how governance kind of flows. But that's kind of unfair because the services that the CRD provide are effective, and it's something that the residents have all determined that they wanted to utilize and buy into. But anyways, we had CRD directors as it morphed into that. We had various directors, and the directors took us in various directions. But we all, sort of bumbled along, and province kept saying, oh, you got to incorporate, you have to incorporate. And so they kept bringing up these incorporation studies, but they were done by the province primarily, and they were rejected. So over a fair length of time, we rejected 2 incorporation studies. But by that time, there started to be significant growth happening. Our neighbors, Colwood with Judith is a councillor of Langford, places like that, they started to develop. Metchosin being a lifestyle community, strictly rural, and determined to stay that way, we all started to think, well, maybe we should be looking at a different model. Some of us did anyways, not me. Just to show you how smart I was, I voted against all 3 of the incorporation studies, and I thought, no, we don't need any more government. Well, here I am. We were very fortunate in that on the 3rd incorporation study, we had some very good citizens who knew what they were doing, and they took over the incorporation study essentially. They modeled it in a way that made sense for Metchosin. They visioned it, and that was the key to the whole thing. They visioned it to the extent that we could see, or most of the residents could see, what the long-term vision would come out of Incorporation if it was done the way they had said. And then they were able to fit the numbers to the vision. And so it was approved. These were the same people that actually had a lot to do with crafting our first official community plan. Now, I've got a copy of that. I'll talk about the community plan later, but very important document. So they went from the community plan to the incorporation study, and then 4 of the 5 people that did that got elected to the first council. Another very lucky thing for us, because these people knew what they were doing and they had the vision, and they built a foundation in the community that we still are, it's still solid. Very much of what they built, we're still utilizing today in terms of the zoning, in terms of the processes that we use and everything. So we were really lucky in that regard. But that first council really did say, this was the vision, this is why we were elected, and this is what we were going to follow. The second council, and I got elected to the second council, I thought, well, you know, if we can't lick it, we might as well join them. Besides, they'd already done all the heavy lifting, so I could come in afterwards. And it was a lot easier. But anyways, we, on the second council, solidified that policy, and from this, the second council and the succeeding councils, we all built off that foundation, but we firmly established principles to operate on that have carried us through a lot of different problems and a lot of different issues. The fundamental policies were start small. That was the key. Don't, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. No borrowing. This was another fundamental thing. We were determined that we were not going to borrow anything, that we were going to pay as you go. So we established reserves, and we still do that. Everything we buy, every improvement we make, every road we fix, comes out of our reserves that we have put money into. There's absolutely no borrowing. Another thing we decided early on in that second council was no spot zoning. We saw what was happening in a lot of other areas where they started to allow very good proposals outside of their planned core, the commercial core. Okay, well, we can put one over here and we'll put one over there, it makes sense over here, but then pretty soon you get infill all around it. And you've lost your vision. Our vision was a strictly rural vision. We did not want to have any urban development. We wanted to stay with the lot sizes. We wanted to have the taxation. And this is very important. We wanted to have the taxation all based on the same sort of principle, the same properties, the same lifestyle. As soon as you start mixing urban concepts up with rural, you end up with trouble. And very quickly, the urban outnumbers the rural in voting strength. You end up with a lot of things that you don't want. You end up with the property owners who have generally higher assessments, paying a lot of money into issues into things that they don't need and don't use. But those were the things that we were trying to avoid. And another fundamental thing, well, we also, in terms of the spot zoning, we also said no rezoning. The Corporation Committee established the vision. The zoning maps had all been done through the CRD. They were done and they were set and established in our OCP and our land use bylaws. And that was that. And our principle was the biggest investment a person makes in their life are their home, their property, and they have a right to believe that that is not going to be changed. So we stuck with the zoning, and our zoning map, if you look at the Metchosin zoning map today, it is identical to the zoning map of nearly 30 years ago. Some people think that's crazy, but I'll go on to explain why it worked for us. The OCP, here's our OCP. Official community plan. I could talk to you for an hour, I won't because your eyes will glaze over, but I could talk to you for an hour about how important an official community plan is to a small population community. And a community plan is a funny thing. A lot of municipalities regard it as you would your 5-year capital plan. You know, yeah, sure, yeah, province makes us have one, but it doesn't mean anything, and you just change it. A lot of people will say, and quite proudly, well, your community plan is a living document. It has to change. It changes as your community changes. Well, if you've got a vision in your community plan and you change it, the vision dies. It's not living any longer. If you've got the vision, you have to stick with the community plan that permits that vision, that builds that vision. So in Metchosin, we said, that community plan, and it wasn't just us, it was the residents said, that community plan is the Bible. If you expect to get elected, you'd better agree to obey that community plan. We actually almost had to stand there when we were on the podium to get elected, you know. I swear that I will abide by the community plan, and if you didn't, holy cow, boy, they sure let you know about it in a hurry. So that enabled us to elect council after council as we went through, that stuck with the vision. And that was very important. One thing we did do, though, is that we stuck with a conventional form of governance. And that's something that you're going to be hearing an awful lot about as you're going through your incorporation discussions and everything. There's a very established conventional outlook on how to govern a municipality. And we followed that right up until 2005. The convention is that you go out, you hire yourself you get a municipal office and you hire yourself a chief administrative officer, and then you hire a planner, and then you hire a financial officer, and then you hire this and you hire that, and on and on and on. If you're a small population municipality, you can't afford to pay the big dollars to get the really experienced people, so you either get people that are on their way up and using you as a stepping stone, or people that are just looking for a place to park until they retire. In either case, it's not that satisfactory. I went through a lot of years as mayor dealing with people like that were good people, but they weren't that experienced, or they weren't giving you advice that you needed, and it was difficult. And as we went through that time period, it became evident that we were successful in controlling land use, very successful, but we weren't that successful in controlling costs. And our administrative costs kept getting bigger and bigger. And what that meant in a small community with the policies that we had, pay as you go, no borrowing and everything, that meant that the infrastructure started to suffer. The roads were mentioned. It is absolutely key that you keep your infrastructure in good shape. When you're talking about roads and infrastructure, there's a crossing point, a balance point between capital expenses as you put them in and maintenance expenses. And if you don't spend on capital, your maintenance just starts to go up, and it goes up exponentially. So you have to keep a lot of capital into your infrastructure. We were at a point where we were starting to get a little bit dicey. Could we maintain our infrastructure? It was pulling away because of the costs. Well, in 2005, we came up with a whole brand new plan, and this was, and it's been a very interesting experience since then. I'll just dwell on this for a second. There's two basic philosophies in running a municipality. There's the conventional one that says you have to expand your tax base to survive. And the other one is that you stay small and live within your means. Well, we, of course, didn't want to expand our tax base. We wanted to live within our means, and we were starting to think, geez, can we? So what we did was we took a really hard look at what we had. We had a rural municipality. We had an opportunity to do something entirely different. So we got rid of all of our senior staff. We didn't shoot them. We, through various means, over a 6-month period, out the door. Every one of our senior staff. We cross-trained our unionized staff. Very small. We contracted all of the senior services. And what we did was, and you people have the same sort of opportunities because there's a demographic now where there's a lot of highly experienced people that are retiring but don't really want to get out of the game. So we hired, under contract, all of our senior people on an as-needed basis. So we're at the point, and there's two advantages to that. The one advantage is, and this is the biggest, this is the most prominent one that I have, that it just, is that the advice we get is so good. We get top-notch advice, and it has made a huge difference to our municipality. But the advice comes with another bonus. If you add up the total time for our Chief Administrative Officer, who used to be the CAO of Victoria, and before that City of Kamloops, and before that so on and so forth, very experienced guy. If you add up the time that he spends with us, our Chief Financial Officer, who's one of the top guys in the province, he travels all over the world, our planner, and our engineer, it comes to one full-time equivalent. That's how much we spend on all of this good advice, because we just don't need them that much. And in fact, like our Chief Financial Officer, when we asked him if he would come and work for us on a retainer, he said, yeah, I'll do it on one condition: no reports. Well, I tell you what, that's absolutely the best thing I wanted to hear, because I had spent years reading these crazy reports, and you've got all of your people sitting there generating all of this stuff, because it doesn't matter what the job is, the work will always be created to fill the job. So you're reading these enormous reports, and your head's about to explode because you're trying to figure out what it all says. None of that now. Politicians have to sit there and think for themselves. They can't let the staff make up their own minds, because the staff aren't doing that. I could go on for a long time about the advantages of having the culture that comes from having a fully contracted senior staff. They're not there for their jobs, they're there because they want to be, they don't need the money. You have to be nice to them. They don't have to kiss up to you. It's very interesting. It's been a huge reversal of the way I was used to operating in municipality, and I like it. And this is what you can have if you have if you have a rural community with rural servicing standards, with everybody on the same sort of playing field in taxation and in desire in what they want out of their community. We are able now, we've realized this, we are able, because we're a small rural community, small in population, that we can do things that nobody else can. And that, to me, is the real advantage that we're getting out of this incorporation, is that we can do other things. As soon as you get into an urban situation, as soon as you have all of those servicing demands, as soon as you have all the taxation disparities and everything else, you have to have the big staffs, you have to go into the borrowing, you have to have sewers, you have to have all of this other stuff, curbs and gutters and everything else, and you can't do what we can do. So where are we? Right now, we're a municipality with no debt whatsoever. We have substantial cash reserves. We have about $5 million in cash reserve. We are everything that we need in the future, and all our capital plans, we can pay cash for. We have the lowest taxes per $1,000 of assessed value of any municipality in the region. We have an up-to-date infrastructure. You talk about roads, most of our roads we have probably some of the best roads on the island. In fact, the paving companies say we do. We're in the process of just finishing off paving programs, which will give us brand new road surfaces in all our majors. We got 2 new bridges. We built 2 major bridges in our community and paid cash for them. We've got all new fire trucks. We don't need another fire truck till 2020. All of this, we've got an new work charter, we got all sorts of stuff, right? And all of this was a concerted effort on our part to divert money strictly into this infrastructure to make us recession-proof. Again, because we kind of got scared that we might lose our ability to maintain our rural direction. So we thought, to heck with that, we're going to make ourselves so that we can, if something happens, if grants dry up, if economy fails, whatever else, we can survive for several years if we have to, without putting a nickel into capital. Because we built ourselves up to that point, and we've kept all of our structures, our administrative structures, in a situation that can respond to whatever comes along. If the economy fails, or if it goes, if we go into a recession, or if something else happens, if the grants dry up or whatever like that, because these people, all of our staff, our senior staff are on contract, we only use them when we need them. If we don't need them, we don't use them. It doesn't cost us anything. They're not sitting there trying to fill their jobs and in doing so generate costs. So we have tried to reduce our fixed costs as much as possible. And I'm getting the hook here, so I guess in summation, what we've done is basically put our municipality on a road to long-term sustainability. You can take a look at our books, you can take a look at our plans, our capital plans, our projections and everything else. We can go the way we are as long as we don't expand our population too much, as long as we don't do too much other than what we're doing. We can go for as long as we can see into the future. A lot of municipalities can't say that nowadays. But the summation is, and I think this is what we're getting to here, is that we couldn't have done anything of what I've talked about if we hadn't have incorporated. I was dead wrong. We had to incorporate. If we hadn't have, all you have to do, I don't know how many people drive down that area, but all you have to do is drive through the Happy Valley area of Langford to see what would have happened in Metchosin. We'd have been eaten up in no time. There would have been no lifestyle as we know it. We wouldn't have been able to take advantage of the new fiscal models that we're trying, and it all would have been lost. We had to incorporate. But even with incorporation, you still have to make all the right moves. You have to know who you're electing. You have to have the vision before you start. You have to make sure they stay with the vision. You have to ride over the rough spots and say, hell no, we're not changing, we can make this work. Those are the things that you have to do. If you don't, if you make one wrong move in this, you never get it back. So, for us, incorporation saved us, and the right people saved us, the right attitudes of the community that said to all of us politicians, you've got to do it. One of the things that we did when we started small was that and it was the first mayor that did this, a visionary, he said, we don't need a municipal hall, but we need property. So that's what they did. They bought 11 acres with this house on it. And up until from 1984 to 1999, that was our municipal hall. There was the living room was the council chamber. It was this little thing that had a stone wall with a fireplace. We used to light the fireplace, and we'd all sit at this table. Well, I'll tell you what. When you're sitting at a table in the living room, and the residents are that far away from you, glaring at you, you toed the line. It was a very healthy environment for keeping us on track. So, I guess my message is that if you do it right, if you have the vision, if you establish the vision, if you elect the right people, and if you don't listen to conventional wisdom, if you take a look at what can be done, you can do it. And you can do it well and comfortably, and it doesn't cost you any more money. In fact, in the long run, it's probably going to cost you less money. That's what we're finding. Rural communities now have the lowest tax rates. The ones that have undertaken rapid growth rapidly found out there was problems that came with that. But it's too late then. The rural people, you know, if you're all in the same boat, you're all paying the same taxes, you all have the same vision, you put up with stuff. You put up with not having all the happy stuff. People come along and say, yeah, well, we should do this, we should do that. Well, no, we can't afford it, we're not going to do it. We'll do it when we can afford it. And it's the residents are the ones that determine that. They're the ones that keep the rein on the politicians and keep them from doing stupid things. It was difficult for us at first. When I first ran for office, I barely got in. And I was saying, we don't have to be like Colwood. we can be different. And my friends would come up and say, hey, John, you know, you talked a good line, but you know, you can't do that, eh? You know, you gotta progress. You gotta have progress. Well, no. Progress to us is what we've done. And now it's a complete reversal. Now instead of standing up there and trying to convince your residents, yeah, we can stay this, we can stay small, we don't have to do all of this growth. Now you've got to defend yourself and say, oh, hold on a minute, I can do it better than this guy can. You know, the residents insist that it stays the same because they know what they've got. They can look at the future, they can look at their lifestyle and say, man, this worked and we're keeping it no matter what. So it's so much easier now to do what we plan to do because people believe it, they bought into it. And we've proven it. So my message to when I speak in front of groups like this used to be, if you want to incorporate for one reason, and that's to control your own land use. Because you have to have apples and apples and oranges and oranges. If you're rural, if you're living on properties, if you have a lifestyle, you can't have competing lifestyles or you'll lose it. If you have to compete with urban, you'll become urban. That used to be my message. Now there's another message. And that is, there's a second reason for doing it this way. And that is to take advantage of the economic models that are available. The demographics are such now that we can take advantage of all of this expertise that's floating around out there. We don't have to do the conventional things. Our highways, we used to do a highways contractor to look after our highways. He was a great guy, Metchosin resident, kept everything really economical. He died. What are we going to do? We would have to look at Main Road. We thought, holy cow, Main Road. We don't want Main Road, you know. You guys have got Main Road. So we decided to take a chance and take it over. So with 200 lane kilometers of rural road, we don't have urban standards, and we were able to look after those roads just fine with 3 employees. So we started off with these guys, and they all knew what they were doing. They did work for the contractor. So we got a guy in, a highways consultant, to tell us what we do. We figured out very quickly, we don't even need this guy. These guys know what they're doing. So we went to these guys and we said, look, you guys know what you're doing. If you take ownership of this, we're not going to give you a bonus. So they did, and we don't. We don't have any administrative hierarchy. Same as our office staff. They're self-directed. Our CAO, the contractor, he just goes down there because he enjoys it. He goes down there and tells them every week, you know, this is what we want done, and they do it. And he keeps an eye on it and makes sure that it's done, and that's all we need. Those are the things that you can do. All right, just another example. I'm running on time. I'm going to get the real hook here, and but just to give you an example of what can be done, our highways guys are also firefighters, and we make that a condition of the thing. So now, if we have a fire call, we can have, because we have a full volunteer fire department, we can have a full engine crew turn out during the daytime, anytime, guaranteed. Those are the things that you can do when you've got that kind of flexibility. So I guess I better get off here before I get embarrassed by Judith here. In a nutshell, I've been through the process that you're considering. If you do it right, it works. I've learned the hard way on many things. I've learned what doesn't work. learned the mistakes, and I've been lucky enough to stay there long enough that I could correct them. And I'm just here now to assure you that if you do want to go small in terms of, and not be part of the bigger unit, I really do think that you can do it, but you have to think differently. Thanks.